Notre Dame finding a way to get it done on the road against a ranked Duke team. College game day was there. A lot of juice around this game. Riley Leonard, potentially a guy that's being talked about in NFL draft circles, one of the top quarterbacks off the board when it comes time for him to be drafted. Even so, final score, Notre Dame 21, Duke 14. Mitchell Evans, a tight end for Notre Dame who has been balling the last couple of games, was asked post-game about how his team was able to have this kind of performance in this kind of game and how they were able to, kind of rebound from last week's heartbreaker against Ohio State. And he was just pretty blunt and said, champions respond. And that's what we talk about here at Notre Dame. I love that response. I think there's a lot to jump into within this game. A lot of layers here. It's Tell the Truth Sunday. So that's what we do. We got to tell the truth on this Sunday morning as well as we churning out content for you. But regardless, I want to talk about this. Make sure you're subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel. It's college football. It's only college football. Want y'all a part of it. All right. Also, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JD Piquel to make sure you are 110% locked in to everything we got going on here at this program. We appreciate y'all so much for that. So, this was a true back against the wall kind of game for Notre Dame. You lose to Ohio State. Pretty much the last play of the game. It was well documented, 10 men on the field, like everyone's making a big deal about it, and it is what it is, and quite frankly, it was a big deal. Because for Notre Dame, should they lose one more game, they are out of the college football playoff race. One, you're kind of like, it's a conversation. We'll talk about that here a little bit later in this video. But two, that's it. No conference title game, 2 losses. No team's ever made it with 2 losses, period. Like that would have been it. And that's what they play for at Notre Dame. They play for national titles. That's the standard. Like that is the expectation. Marcus Freeman is not shying away from that. Sam Hartman's not shying away from that. And so with their back against the wall, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty, but they found a way. And when your back's against the wall, you do a couple of things. The first is you start swinging. You get aggressive because you want out of that corner. You want out of that place that you're trapped in. You want to scratch and claw and swing and punch and do whatever you have to do to get out of this place of desperation. And Notre Dame did exactly that, and I loved it. First drive of the game, they're aggressive, fake punt. Find a way to get points out of it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Second thing you do when you're backed into a corner, when your back's against the wall like Notre Dame was, you go back to what you know. You go back to what's comfortable. You go back to your identity. The identity for Notre Dame, they're physical, they're downhill, they run the football. Audric Estime, I think, embodies that to a T. 18 carries, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns, as well as the game winner. Game blouses was what Audric Estime said. Even though the defense ended up making the play to eventually win the game, Audric Estime had the game clincher, more or less, or what proved to be. That was who Notre Dame was last night. They went back to the bread and butter, and they did so really effectively against a good Duke defense now. To be clear, that was not some basketball school kind of defense. That was a good, solid, ranked defense that they played against last night. And Sam Hartman attested to as much in the postgame. Defensively, they were aggressive. They were aggressive to the tune of 2 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss, and they wreaked havoc for a lot of this game. Now, again, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty, and that's kind of part of this Tell the Truth Sunday. We talk about the game. We talk about the implications. At the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to watch the tape and say, what really happened? We know how it feels. We know what the headlines are. We know what people are saying. What really happened? And when you look at the defensive side of things, I love that they were aggressive. I think that's who they are. I think that's what they want to make their money doing. But at the exact same time, when you're aggressive defensively like Notre Dame is, when you want to bring pressure and you want to kind of try and be a havoc-wreaking sort of defense, there's 2 sides, like I was saying. The first is when it works, it wreaks havoc, like I just alluded to. You force turnovers. You force tackles for a loss, like you force negative plays. The other piece of this, though, when you try and be aggressive, you leave yourself a little bit more exposed to the chunk plays. Now, to be clear, they held Duke to 14 points, but there were a couple of times where you could see there were plays to be made by Duke. Sometimes they made them, sometimes they didn't, but it's a little bit of a risk-reward scenario you're playing there if you're Notre Dame. I love it. Live by the sword, die by the sword. We're telling the truth on this Sunday. That's how Notre Dame wants to get down defensively. More power to you. But that is something we got to kind of keep an eye on for Notre Dame. They got to make sure they have that buttoned up going forward so other offenses don't take advantage of it. Hint, hint, wink, wink, USC. Now, Mitchell Evans, who we talked about at the top of this segment, Tell the Truth Sunday. I mean, that is probably one of the main talking points. Mitchell Evans is a dude. And the way that he has come on the last couple of games, he had 6 catches, 134 yards, a one-hander in this game. The way that he has progressed is a game changer for Notre Dame's offense, because what Notre Dame wants to do typically, like I just said, they want to line up with a couple of tight ends out there. They want to get downhill. They want to play smash mouth. Well, when you have a tight end who can be a receiving threat too, who's all of about like 6'5", 260 pounds, that's hard to match up with. So he's a good blocker with that size, but also he's a threat to catch the ball as well. And so when you can line up in that kind of personnel with multiple tight ends, Mitchell Evans being one of them, and the defense has to at least honor that he might try and catch a pass on you, or they have to at least think about that while he's coming to block you, keeps them off balance. Something else they have to account for. It makes Notre Dame more multiple. When you're more multiple offensively for Notre Dame, good things happen. You have a better chance to score points. Case in point, what happened last night with how Notre Dame finished that football game. Now, the other thing about this, Sam Hartman is that guy. Mitchell Evans is a dude. Sam Hartman is that guy. And the stat line wasn't perfect. Like, that's kind of the whole sentiment behind this segment with Notre Dame. It wasn't perfect. It was what it was. He was 15 for 30, 222 yards. Is that great? No. But you know what it was? Good enough to win. And on 4th and 16, he's out there looking for someone to throw to. This is 4th and 16 for the game, mind you. Sees open space, says, all right, I guess it's me, tucks it, runs it, launches his body forward for a 17-yard gain, first down, sets up the game-winning touchdown. Like, that's the quarterback I want to rally behind. That's the quarterback that I'm down to go to war with. And Sam Hartman, regardless of what happens the rest of the way for Notre Dame, I am fully convinced he is a college football playoff caliber quarterback. Period. Mic drop, the end. That's how we feel about him. There's no way around it. And so now when we talk about the college football playoff with Notre Dame, it's a question I got a lot on my Instagram Q&A on Fridays when we're having a conversation, just us, not on YouTube, just me at JD Piquel, and we just sit down and kind of talk ball. Y'all hit me with questions, and I answer it in video form on my story. A question I've gotten a couple weeks in a row now is, hey, can Notre Dame still make the playoff? Well, I'll tell you what, a ranked win on the road last night, that helps. That helps. Also, you're rooting pretty heavily now. It feels counterintuitive. It feels weird. Stick with me now. You're rooting pretty heavily for USC. I know, got to do it, means to an end. And you're rooting pretty heavily for Clemson because you play USC in South Bend October 14th. You play Clemson at Clemson November 4th. Wins against both those teams, they're resume boosters. You don't have that extra data point of playing in a conference championship game. It is what it is. All right? But if you're able to beat both of those teams and have both those teams at least ranked or highly ranked if it's USC, good things could happen for Notre Dame. Like, at the end of the day, I have a hard time believing that a loss to a top 10 team on the last play of the game is going to be what keeps Notre Dame out of the college football playoff. If it is, a lot of things probably happened, but I think if Notre Dame handles business, probably need a little bit of help, but I think there is absolutely a path for the Irish to get to the college football playoff. No matter how narrow, the path exists. And a win last night, another step on that path. Make sure you're subscribed. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Piquel. Hey, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.